Do you want to know how to parent a child with sensory processing disorder? I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach all over the world about parenting, good communication, and how to build strong family bonds, as well as child development and education, all through the lens of the principle self-government. And in this video, we're talking about things you can do for sensory processing disorder. I'm the mother of 4 and the previous foster parent of many. And many of my foster children actually had sensory processing disorder, so I've had some firsthand experience. They came to my home for therapeutic treatment care, so our whole objective in helping all of the foster children that came to our family was not only to help them prepare for regular life and to overcome possible trauma and relationship issues, since many of them were neurodiverse, learn to function a little bit more, I guess we should say, normally or in average ways like other people, and help them to be able to analyze what was going on so that we could help them make a difference. So what I focused on was the principle of self-government. We'll talk here in a second about what that means. But first off, just so you know how this video is going to flow, we're going to talk about self-government. We're going to talk about sensory processing disorder, what that really looks like for a person and for you who might be working with them, and then things that you can do to help them connect the dots in a way that's going to be productive for them instead of getting the misfiring that can happen in the brain. So who is affected by sensory processing? Well, honestly, a lot of people. Some studies say that 1 in 6 children struggle with sensory processing. Now, whether they truly have the sensory processing disorder, that's another thing. People do say that at least 1 in 20 adults struggles with some sort of sensory processing. And there are a lot of different neurodiversities and just situations in life that can lead to sensory processing difficulties and sensory processing disorders. Things like autism, things like trauma, things like Down syndrome, anxiety, failed relationships with people, so increased stress obviously is going to be an issue. Migraines, pregnancy. If you've been pregnant before, like I have many times, then you know that there's things that happen like smells that just sometimes really bother you when suddenly your hormones change in your body. There's Lyme disease, and then of course there's all of the auditory processing and speech processing and personality disorders, and all of those things can lead to sensory processing disorder. So for many people, sensory processing disorder is something that has been attached to maybe another diagnosis that they have. That's very common. Just so you know, I'm super used to that. The majority of the foster children that came to my home had multiple diagnoses. There were many acronyms that were listed on their charts, and we would help them with all of those things simultaneously. So just because your child has maybe ADHD or RAD or something like that, as well as sensory processing disorder, that does not mean that you need a separate video. This video and the stuff that's contained here is going to help you with all of the above. In fact, everything that's here on this channel was actually designed with neurodiverse children who were higher anxiety in mind, and many of them had issues with their sensory processing. So I had super tasters and super smellers and super feelers and people who would get overstimulated by different sounds or couldn't pick up on certain words and sounds and those types of things. Now, sometimes they were able to overcome some of that processing just by dealing with the trauma and some of the other neurodiversities that they had and helping them learn skills that they needed for success. So that's what I'd really like to talk about is, what skills for success does a person need to focus on? What type of self-government skills can we use to help a person who has sensory processing? So when a person has an episode where they have a sensory processing issue, this could affect any of their senses, okay? So this could affect their their sight, their smell, their taste, their hearing, their touch, their balance, their internal processing, external processing. These are all issues that can be impacted by sensory processing. Basically, what happens to a person is they do something. Maybe they take a step from smooth ground to rocky ground, and there's a message that gets sent to their brain, and the message is somehow in the process of going from their foot, and where their foot is stepping, to their brain is somehow disconnected or twisted in some way so that the brain does not know how to handle it. And this can create a lot of anxiety and worry in the person, because suddenly they go, I don't know how to handle this. I don't know how to handle walking on rocky ground instead of a smooth surface ground. And so then what happens is they can get afraid of the new surface and not want to do it. So then we have, again, more increased levels of anxiety that they're going to be dealing with. And they could even go all the way to back brain over this issue. So front brain, we can think the most, right? Midbrain, we start getting a little emotional. We lose some of our ability to think. By the time we get to back brain, then we are having a hard time functioning. We are having a hard time telling ourselves to do anything. So we've got to get ourselves moved forward to the front brain. The whole system of self-government and teaching children self-government was actually designed to help the child recognize, okay, where am I at in my brain? What do I need to do to get back to front brain? Am I really thinking clearly, or am I just running away from this? Because I would say that's probably one of the most normal things that happens. Sometimes anger or, really like big outbursts can happen when a person has sensory processing disorder, because they just don't know how to handle it. And so they start shaking and pacing, and they start saying things maybe that they, don't really fully mean. It's just the anxiety that's coming out. Other times what happens is they just shut down, right? So when they're in the back brain, they either can go to fight or flight usually, right? And they get to the place where they are going to flight. Like, I can't do that. I won't, and they just kind of like want to cuddle up and go away from whatever the circumstance is, whether it's a sound, whether it's a taste. I mean, they're willing to die on that wall because their brain has told them this isn't safe, or this isn't okay, or you don't know how to handle this. And so then they don't know what to do. And it just overwhelms them because they don't know how to solve their problems. So teaching problem solving is going to be super key then. Really teaching that prefrontal cortex to see more things, to sort out more things. That's going to be crucial to helping a person with sensory processing navigate their world. In fact, you've got to help them know the right things to tell themselves on the inside so that they don't struggle with every little circumstance that they have. If a person struggles with maybe taste or texture, texture could be one in the mouth. So there's some people that they don't like things that are, too soft maybe in their mouth, or bumpy, like cottage cheese or something like that. They don't like that texture. They struggle with that. That's a processing thing. Well, so then if you've subscribed to this channel before, you know that we talk about how the brain works with stimuli. Okay, I feel something. Now I have a thought about it. Now I go to an emotional place about it. That's how the brain works, right? So if I'm feeling something bumpy, what is the thought that comes after that? Is the thought, ooh, this is new, or oh, that's too slimy? What is the thought that happens? So if the thought is, ew, then we need to fix that because we're never going to get past it, right? So maybe we could say, oh, that's bumpy. That's new. That's a new thing. I don't usually eat things that are bumpy. Is this safe because it's new? Well, someone told me that it's safe, and it's someone I trust. My parent told me that it's safe. So I think it's okay to try it. I'm going to tell myself to try it. They're going to have to challenge that ooh thought that's happening on the inside. In fact, this is how they're going to handle all their anxieties, this process. So it's basically a process of recognizing what's going on, being able to describe it, and then using one of those teaching self-government skills for success. So either I stop myself from thinking a certain thing, And then I instruct myself to think another thing that I've pre-planned myself to do. So we have to know how to follow instructions and how to accept no answers for ourselves. What that person does is they take the appropriate action and they start directing themselves instead of just reacting to whatever sensation they were having. So learning how to accept a no answer is key. These children's books here each teach one of the 4 basic skills of self-government, which are following instructions, accepting no answers and criticism, accepting consequences, and disagreeing appropriately. So when a person is experiencing a sensation that they don't like, that's a no answer. Anything you don't prefer, anything you don't like is a no answer. And that's what this book, Porter Earns a Quarter, teaches again and again and again. If there's something that you don't prefer, that's like hearing a no answer. So what do? I do the 4 steps of accepting a no answer. Learning the steps to the skills for success, these 4 basic skills, is so empowering for young people. I was recently with a family who had a child who struggled with certain sensory things and with touch, wanted to always be touching something. And that was something that gave a lot of comfort. Certain types of things. By the way, we all do that. We all have certain shirts we like to wear because they feel a certain way and they're our go-tos, right? But this person really would get worried if the touch that they were touching wasn't exactly the same every time. I said to the parents, let's teach this person how to accept a no answer. So we taught this young boy how to accept a no answer. And he was able to tell himself out loud at first, no, that's just a no. I'm okay with this other type of fabric touching me. It's not my favorite, but it's not going to hurt me. And he would have to tell himself these truths again and again. And part of accepting no answer is to drop the subject. So he had to tell himself sometimes, even out loud, I need to drop the subject. There are so many more things about self-government that we could talk about on this channel. Please just, look through all of the skills videos and everything else. If you want a great overview and to understand a little bit more about the skills of self-government for the parents and the children as well, those 4 basic skills, then definitely watch next the full-length class called The Not So Known Secret for Parenting Success. I'll see you there.